When you think of Marvel Comics, one name probably pops into your head, right? Stan Lee, that smiling, energetic showman behind Spider-Man, the Avengers, and a whole universe of heroes. But what if I told you the real story is, well, it's way more complex and frankly a lot more interesting than the legend. Today, we're gonna peel back that myth to find the real man underneath. We all know the catchphrase, Excelsior, ever upward, and it really does capture the optimistic spirit of the Stan Lee persona. But that persona, with the signature sunglasses and that sly grin, that was one of his greatest creations. The real man was a total bundle of contradictions. Ambitious, sure, but also deeply insecure. A revolutionary storyteller who was once, believe it or not, completely ashamed of his own work. So if we really want to understand the Marvel Universe, we have to understand the man who claimed to be its father. We need to separate Stan Lee the brand from Stanley Martin Lieber, the kid from the Bronx who dreamed of writing the great American novel, not comic books. To find Stan Lee, we have to go back, way back, to the beginning. And his story doesn't start with a big, superheroic bang. It starts with the quiet desperation of the Great Depression, where a young boy's imagination was pretty much his only escape from a world of struggle. The speed of his early career is pretty astonishing when you look at it. I mean, he gets a job in 1939 doing odd jobs like erasing pencil marks from comic pages. Just 2 years later, he's the interim editor-in-chief. It sounds super impressive, but it was almost a total accident. His bosses, Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, they quit over a dispute, and Stan was basically just the last man standing. He was put in charge temporarily, a temporary job that ended up lasting for decades. But here's the crazy part. He never even wanted this job. Young Stanley was a huge reader, devouring Shakespeare and watching movie heroes like Errol Flynn. His dream wasn't to write dialogue for Captain America. It was to write the great American novel. For him, comics were just a paycheck, a way to pay the bills until his real writing career could finally start. Back in the 40s and 50s, comics were seen as cheap, disposable junk for kids. So for a guy who saw himself as a serious writer, it was humiliating. He actually created the pen name Stan Lee to save his real name, Stanley Martin Lieber, for the serious novels he was sure he was going to write someday. The irony, of course, is that the temporary name became the one the entire world would know. So all this frustration he had, it just kept simmering, and then it finally boiled over. By the late 1950s, after 20 years in the business, Stan was completely and totally burned out. He was almost 40, managing a company that was on the edge of going bust, and he was just churning out stories he found boring. He was ready to quit for good. You see, the whole industry was being censored by this group called the Comics Code Authority, which had all these super strict rules about what you could and couldn't show. So Stan was stuck writing these generic, cookie-cutter stories, cowboys, monsters, teen romance, all aimed at really young kids. He felt like his career was a dead end. This wasn't real writing, it was just filling pages. And this is the moment where absolutely everything changed. He was on the verge of quitting, and he's complaining to his wife, Joan, and she gives him the piece of advice that you could argue saved Marvel Comics. She basically told him, look, if you're gonna quit anyway, why not go out with a bang? For once, write the kind of story that you would want to read. The worst they can do is fire you, and you're already walking out the door. That advice just freed him up completely. He and the artist Jack Kirby created the Fantastic Four, and it was nothing short of revolutionary. Unlike the perfect godlike heroes over at DC Comics, these characters were a mess. They were a dysfunctional family. They argued, they had massive egos, they worried about paying the rent. They felt human. And with that one single act of creative rebellion, the Marvel Universe was born. But as the Marvel empire got bigger and bigger, so did the controversy over how exactly it was built. See, creating these iconic characters wasn't a solo act, and the question of who really deserves the credit has been one of the longest, most bitter debates in the history of comics. At the very heart of the whole issue is this process they used, which became known as the Marvel method. To hit these insane deadlines, Stan wouldn't write a full script. Instead, he'd give an artist like Jack Kirby or Steve Ditko just a brief plot summary. The artist would then go and draw the entire 20-page story, figuring out the pacing, the action, essentially co-plotting the whole thing. Only then would Stan get the pages back and write in the dialogue. It was fast, yeah, but it made the lines of who created what incredibly blurry. And this is exactly where the conflict is, because you know what? Both sides kind of have a point. Stan always argued he provided the spark, the core concepts, and the voices that made these characters feel so real. But his collaborators, guys like Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko, they argued that they were the real storytellers. They claimed they took these vague ideas and turned them into epic visual stories, doing most of the actual plotting and character design themselves. And wow, this quote from Jack Kirby, the guy who co-created the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, and the X-Men, it just captures the bitterness that grew over the years. While Stan became the public face and the so-called father of Marvel, his collaborators felt like they were being erased from their own history, their huge contributions minimized, while Stan soaked up most of the credit and the fame. Okay, so his role as a creator is complicated, to say the least, but his genius in one area is absolutely 100% undisputed. He was a master showman. He didn't just sell comic books, he sold an identity. He turned Marvel from just another publisher into a club, and he made himself its charismatic leader. He built this personal brand with incredible care. In the comics, he had these bullpen bulletins pages where he spoke directly to the readers, not as a corporation, but like a cool uncle letting you in on a secret. He created an insider language with catchphrases and made fans feel like they were part of this special group of true believers. Even his look, the sunglasses, the toupee, it was all part of crafting this larger-than-life character of Stan Lee. And the difference was just night and day. While competitors like DC sounded so formal and stuffy like a corporate memo, Stan's tone was personal, witty, and inclusive. He made reading Marvel comics feel like you were joining a conversation. And that created a kind of fan loyalty that nobody had ever seen before. It became one of Marvel's greatest strengths. So when we step back and look at the whole picture, what is Stan Lee's ultimate legacy? Well, the numbers alone are just staggering. They paint a picture of an unbelievable, massive impact on pop culture all over the world. Just think about that number for a second. Over 700 characters. I mean, that includes the huge global icons like Spider-Man, the Hulk, and Iron Man, sure. But it's also the hundreds and hundreds of other heroes, villains, and side characters that make the Marvel Universe feel so rich and real. And all that creative work, it translated directly into this, a multi-billion-dollar movie empire. The entire Marvel Cinematic Universe was built on the foundation that he, Kirby and Ditko laid way back in the 1960s. He actually lived long enough to see the characters from his little pulp paper world become the biggest stories on the entire planet. And he just never stopped. His career spanned almost the entire history of the comic book industry itself. He worked like crazy, promoting, creating, and talking to fans right up until his death in 2018. He was 95 years old. For whole new generations of fans, this is the Stan Lee they know. Not the struggling writer or the controversial collaborator, but the beloved, winking grandfather who makes a funny appearance in every single Marvel movie. He successfully cemented his own legend, becoming a real-life character inside the very universe he helped build. So we're left with this question. Was he the sole creator, a brilliant collaborator, or maybe a master showman who understood the power of a good story better than anyone? Maybe the answer is all of the above. And perhaps the greatest character Stan Lee ever co-created was Stan Lee himself. And in the end, that inspiring myth might just be the most powerful story he ever told.